The servers are the 7 chaos. Chaos is power. Power enriched by the heart. The controller is the one that unifies the chaos. That is Tikal's prayer in Sonic Adventure regarding both the Chaos Emeralds and the Master Emerald, those being some of, if not the most important objects in the entire Sonic series. Usually they are what's driving the plot. From stopping Eggman's Death Egg, which is powered by the Chaos Emeralds, or Master Emerald, depends on which game, to a quest to get the remaining Chaos Emeralds before Eggman feeds all of them to the God of Destruction, everyone having to stop the Chaos Emeralds being used to power the Eclipse Cannon, threatening to wipe out all of humanity, or using the Gaia Temples to both give the Chaos Emeralds their power back but also solve the jigsaw puzzle Earth has become. They are very central to whatever plot they are in, which they are either the central focus or not present at all. There's really no in between. Though even the Sonic games that don't have a Chaos Emerald focused story still include them, Colors and Lost World having them for getting the Red Star rings, and Forces as DLC. The Chaos Emeralds have been in pretty much every single mainline Sonic game, the exceptions being CD, which instead has the Time Stones, and the Storybook games, which has 7 rings in hand and swords. But anyways, the Chaos Emeralds are kinda weird, often serving more as plot devices than anything else. Heck, earlier in the series, they were wildly inconsistent. Plus, their powers and origins have been pretty confusing, such as how they are described as having infinite energy, but whoops, Eggman's unfortunately shaped ship when pissed on the Earth. Now the Chaos Emeralds are out of energy and we need to recharge them with the Gaia Temples. Or how the Chaos Emeralds will gain new abilities when it fits the plot, just to never be mentioned or used again. But if you decide to look at the Chaos Emeralds, they have fairly interesting lore, origins, and abilities. That of which I would like to talk about today, even if they are a bit confusing. So we're going to cover pretty much everything about the Chaos Emeralds, from their powers to their origins, both in and out of universe, what they may or not have been based on, and their early inconsistencies. But before we get into that, I would just like to ask you to like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. Yes, I'm currently plugging, but statistically videos that do that perform better, so if you want to stay in tune for my upload schedule of sometimes, please subscribe. Now on to the video.
Oh, my emeralds! Oh!
Now, it's unknown what exactly gave Sonic Team the idea of the Chaos Emeralds for the first Sonic game, in which there were 6 emeralds, which was later increased to 7. But we do know why they chose the name at least. You see, they used the words Chaos and Emerald. Now, Chaos is quite self-explanatory. Their powers are chaotic. However, Emerald is not as good of a descriptor. You see, an emerald is a gemstone that is quite specifically green. Though it could have a blue or yellowish hue, it's still mostly green. The Chaos Emeralds come in more colors than just green, most of the time, making the title of Emerald not really fit. The emeralds also have a diamond cut as opposed to an emerald cut, I guess to make the name fit even less. But an emerald is actually a variety of beryl, which pure beryl is colorless, but due to various impurities, it can appear in many different colors. In fact, there is enough varieties of beryl to cover all the Chaos Emerald colors. Emerald, Aquamarine, Maxis, Heliodor, Bixbyte, Goshenite, and specifically Purple Morganite. And this connection to beryl is not lost on Sega, as in the Archie comics there exists an alternate reality of Anti-Mobius, home to anti-versions of all our favorite characters like Scourge or Dr. Ivo Kintobor. It also has anti-Chaos Emeralds, which are fittingly named the Anarchy Beryl. Which, also, fun fact, in Sonic Forces Rise of Infinite, one of Cubot's proposed names for the Phantom Ruby was Anarchy Beryl, though Ian Flynn didn't mean that as a reference. So why are they called emeralds, and not something more fitting like Chaos Beryl or Chaos Gemstones? Well, for one, Chaos Emerald sounds a lot nicer than any other options I've listed. I don't think anyone would be as interested in the Chaos Heliodor or the Chaos Bixbyte. But there's a more specific reason as to why they are called emeralds. You see, from my research, I have found the most common and best answer for this is that in Japan, the term emerald can loosely refer to gemstones in general, not just the green ones. Something the localization team either didn't catch or didn't bother changing because they couldn't think of anything better than Chaos Emerald. We also know why they eventually settled on these specific colors. It's based off the primary colors of light, those being red, green, blue, and their secondary colors cyan, purple, and yellow, and finally white being the combination of all three. They probably didn't start out with that basis in mind, you'll see why later, but there may be another thing that inspired the Chaos Emeralds, made especially evident with their connection to Supersonic, which has made quite a lot of people draw similarities between the Chaos Emeralds and another set of 7 powerful objects relating to another spiky-haired protagonist. Those, of course, being the 7... The 7 Dragon Balls from, get this, Dragon Ball. Ever since Sonic 2, with the jump to 7 Chaos Emeralds, the addition of Supersonic, and the fact the creator is a Dragon Ball Z fan, it's widely known that the 7 Chaos Emeralds are based on the Dragon Balls. Or are they? Well, for one, it's technically never been confirmed, but you would think it's not that much of a stretch to say the Chaos Emeralds were based on the Dragon Balls. Heck, you can draw a lot of similarities between Sonic and Dragon Ball. Of course, Supersonic and the Emeralds are like Super Saiyan and the Dragon Balls, but Knuckles is like Yamcha, Shadow is like Vegeta, though Sega seems to especially hate that one. Neo Metal Sonic is like Cell, and Silver is like Trunks. Though the only one to be confirmed is Silver being based off Trunks, though they even deny that. But most of these comparisons are just superficial, except Silver and Trunks. All the Dragon Balls and Chaos Emeralds really share in common are they are a collection of 7 really powerful objects, which isn't exactly unique to either of them. But also the fact that Chaos Emeralds turned Sonic into Supersonic also caused this comparison due to the similarities with Super Saiyan. However, despite this, the Dragon Balls have nothing to do with Goku going Super Saiyan. Instead, that's just due to him being a Saiyan among other reasons that don't involve the Dragon Balls. But there is only one other thing they share in common, that being they disperse after being used. Functionally, how the Dragon Balls work is once a person collects 7 of a specific set, yes, there are multiple sets of Dragon Balls, I don't want to get into that, they can be used to summon a magical wish-granting dragon, the Earth Dragon being Shenron, to which they can grant 1 or more wish depends on the dragon, and the wish cannot exceed the power of the Dragon Ball's creator, so Dragon Balls made by more powerful Namekians can grant more powerful wishes. These wishes can range from pretty much anything, like wishing you were Goku, bringing someone back to life,
So I'll just summon him up again and use another wish to bring you guys back to life.
or being given a pair of girls' panties. After the wish is granted, the Dragon Balls turn to stone for a year and scatter across the globe, whereas the Chaos Emeralds contain an unlimited and chaotic energy that can be used to power machines, perform chaos abilities like Chaos Control or Blast, or when all 7 are used, turn someone who can harness their energy into their super form. The Chaos Emeralds can also be used separately for things like Chaos Control or their respective abilities from Superstars. They get more powerful the more of them are gathered together, the best example probably being all of Chaos's different forms. So they are functionally very different. TLDR, the Dragon Balls are wish granters and the Chaos Emeralds grant unlimited energy and power. Also, I'm just going to add that it's a bit unlikely that Chaos Emeralds as a whole were based off the Dragon Balls. Supersonic is definitely based off Super Saiyan, just look at this concept art. But in Sonic 1, not only was there only 6, they served a much different purpose than the Dragon Balls. Now you could say the Dragon Balls helped inspire the jump to 7 to go along with the very Dragon Ball inspired Supersonic, but if the creator said they only added a 7th because they wanted to explain why Sonic couldn't go Super in the first game, I'd believe them. So I guess there is one last thing to compare the two. The Dragon Balls all look practically the same, all orange transparent spheres with a corresponding number of stars in them. The Chaos Emeralds are beautifully diamond-cut jewels that all have distinct colors, ranging from cyan, green, purple, white, yellow, red, and pink. Wait, pink?
Where's that damn 4th Chaos Emerald?
As I mentioned previously, Sonic 1 only had 6 emeralds, those being red, magenta, blue, yellow, green, and white, which later in Sonic 2 we got the addition of the cyan emerald. But they also replaced blue and magenta with purple and pink, which I don't know why they chose to remove blue and add pink. Maybe it's because they didn't want 2 blue emeralds, or maybe it was a similar reason as to why they changed Tails' shoes from blue to red. But then 3 and Knuckles was the first appearance of the 7 Chaos Emeralds we all know today: green, blue, yellow, cyan, red, purple, and white. Though weirdly enough, instead of yellow, we have an orange Super Emerald. But then things get a little weird in Sonic the Fighters, where each playable character got their own corresponding emerald. We had the returning blue, red, green, yellow, and purple. Pink returned, and we got the additions of the orange and darker purple emeralds. And for those of you counting, yes, that's 8 emeralds, but don't worry, the Fang the Hunter comic miniseries retcons the more redundant emerald. That one, of course, being the orange one, implying that both there was no 8th emerald during Sonic the Fighters, and said 8th emerald is actually the Warp Topaz. The last game before Adventure to feature a different set of colors is Sonic R, which instead of having a cyan emerald, has the orange emerald, so at least orange is still a canon emerald color. Also, a strange little tidbit: for some reason, the blue emerald shows as cyan in the menus, however that is the blue emerald. After Adventure, the emerald colors seemed to be more consistent, but then came Sonic Jump, which for some reason decided, nope, get rid of the cyan emerald, we're adding a black one. But we also still have more to talk about beyond just the colors. You see, Sonic 1 had 6 emeralds, we know this, but did you know 8-bit Sonic 1 only had the blue emerald? And that's not me saying there was only one emerald, no, all 6 emeralds were blue. The same is also true for Sonic Spinball, where it also just so happens to have 16 emeralds, all being blue. This even happened as late as Sonic Battle, where they decided that every single emerald would be green. But I find all the games that do this after Adventure kinda weird. At least before the Adventure, they were still figuring things out. Like what they wanted to do with the emeralds, how many there were, what colors they were, but Adventure seemed to cement that there were 7, and the colors were green, blue, yellow, cyan, red, purple, and white. I just wonder, why did Sonic Jump decide to replace cyan with a one-off black emerald, and why did Sonic Battle only use green? Which, by the way, the pink, magenta, orange, darker purple, and black emeralds still have barrel counterparts, those being Morganite, Heliodor, and the aptly named Black Barrel. But it's still weird that these still happened a little bit after Adventure seemed to really lean heavily into the lore of the Chaos Emeralds. Speaking of...
The lore! The lore, guys! The lore! The lore!
The Chaos Emerald story starts out with the Ancients, an alien and highly advanced civilization in which the Chaos Emeralds were a big part of their culture and technological prowess. Though it's unknown what exactly created the Emeralds, it might have been the Ancients, we'll never really know. But, due to the End, a very powerful entity destroying their home planet, the Ancients had to flee, bringing with them the 7 Chaos Emeralds to power their ships. However, as the Ancients were passing Earth, the Emeralds resonated with the power of the Master Emerald, which was on Earth. The Chaos Emeralds are alien, the Master Emerald is not. And the Master Emerald overrode their navigation systems, leading to the Ancients landing on the planet and colonizing the Starfall Islands. Eventually also using the Emeralds to create cyberspace and the Titans, both to try and destroy the End. They failed, however, but as a contingency, some surviving Ancients took the Emeralds and united them with the Master Emerald, creating the Emerald Altar at what would much later become Angel Island. You know, the floating island that houses both Knuckles and the Master Emerald. The Ancients later became the Chao, and one day a Chao would touch the Master Emerald, leading to it being mutated by the Master Emerald's energy, turning the Chao into Chaos, who would be the original protector of the Master Emerald and the Chao. Throughout history, the Emeralds have been quite important and sought after. The Chaos Emeralds also have quite a lot of connections, such as the Gaia Temples, which are not really elaborated on. They were also very much known to many civilizations, such as the Babylonians or the Black Arms. The Emeralds also have some connection to the North Star Islands, but it's never been established exactly what. Their biggest story from around this time, however, is with the ancient civilization on West Side Island, who used the Emeralds to advance society and bring prosperity. However, and this part begins to get a bit contradictory, it is said that their prosperity led to an immense amount of greed, leading to conflicts so large that the gods themselves had to step in and seal the Emeralds away. However, it's also said that the same gods created the Master Emerald to control the Chaos Emerald and keep them in check. which I shouldn't have to tell you why that doesn't exactly line up, so this tale has been retconned entirely, or just the Master Emerald part. It's also around this time that mantra from the beginning of the video was created. We then skip forward 3,000 years before the events of Sonic Adventure. The Chaos and Master Emerald reside in the Emerald Altar alongside the Chao, and Chaos protects and looks over them. This altar resided on the outskirts of the Mystic Ruins. Close by there was the Knuckles clan, who knew of the Chaos Emeralds, and soon Tikal, the daughter of Chief Pachacamac, would befriend both the Chao and Chaos, allowing her into the Emerald Shrine. However, the Knuckles clan wanted the Emerald's power, so Chief Pachacamac launched an attack on the altar to take the Emeralds, with both the Chao and Tikal trying to stop them, though they failed at that, prompting Chaos to use the Emeralds to become Perfect Chaos and wipe out most of the civilization and go on a rampage, forcing Tikal to have the Master Emerald seal both Chaos and herself away in the Master Emerald. And after this, the Chaos Emeralds apparently went missing. However, the surviving members of the Knuckles clan would use the Master Emerald to suspend the altar and surrounding area, creating Angel Island. And they acted as the guardians of the Master Emerald, eventually leading to the Master Emerald being looked after by Knuckles, the last descendant of the Knuckles clan. Then, much later, 50 years before the main timeline, the Emeralds were researched by Professor Gerald aboard the Space Colony Ark. This was for Project Shadow, eventually creating Chaos Drives, plus the energy from the Chaos Emeralds was used to create both the Bio-Lizard and Shadow, with the Bio-Lizard being a failure and Shadow only succeeding because of Black Doom's DNA. Also, while this isn't technically confirmed, I would like to quickly bring up a very popular theory that Gerald, when visiting Angel Island in the Mystic Ruins, had seen both the murals of Supersonic and Perfect Chaos, and had based Shadow and the Bio-Lizard off those murals, which would further connect those two with the Chaos Emeralds. Also around this time, the Eclipse Cannon was built by Gerald under Gun's commission in order to destroy the Black Comet, with the Eclipse Cannon being powered by the 7 Chaos Emeralds. And really, that's about all their history before the main timeline. There is surprisingly little contradictions, the big one being how the Master Emerald was present during the Ancients' arrival, and is the reason the Ancients even landed on Earth, but is also said to have been created by the gods after conflict in Westside Island. But at least we know that if only one of them is true, it's 100% the Ancients. Also, I should bring up the special stages, which are very commonly associated with the Chaos Emeralds due to those being where you generally collect them. Now, I was fully expecting there to be some very convoluted explanation as to how and why the Chaos Emeralds end up there, but thank God Ian Flynn says the special stages are not canon. They're only there for gameplay. Now, I think in the past they were canon, but Ian Flynn's doing his best to make this timeline make sense, and I think the timeline is better off with the special stages not being canon. And finally, I guess I should bring up the Blue Emerald Paradox. You see, in Sonic 06, Shadow and Silver go 10 years into the past to find the truth about Methless and the Iblis Trigger, leading to Shadow creating his own paradox where he seals Methless, leading to him later meeting Methless, who triggers this trip to the past. However, at the same time, Iblis is sealed inside Princess Elise, to which before going back to the present, Silver leaves the Blue Emerald he brought with him from the future with Elise, to which Elise is stated to have kept with her for 10 years. Now, I've actually seen quite a bit of people thinking this breaks the timeline, as that means Sonic couldn't have gone Super in all the previous games since the Blue Emerald was with Elise. With possible explanations being 06 takes place 10 years after the events of the previous game in the timeline, highly doubtful, especially since that means Sonic is 26 in 06. Another explanation is Elise lost the Blue Emerald before the events of all previous games in the series, only to later regain the Emerald before the Soliana Festival. However, both of these are false, and there's a much better explanation. There are 2 Blue Emeralds. People like to focus on the fact Elise has held onto the Blue Emerald for 10 years, but not where the Emerald came from, which is Silver, which he got the Blue Emerald in the present in White Acropolis. So what does this mean? There are 2 Blue Emeralds. The one Elise has is from the future, given to her by Silver, with the younger Blue Emerald still being there to do all of this. In fact, a lot of people are focusing on the wrong emerald. The one they should focus on is the White Emerald, which Silver presumably obtains in Aquatic Base just before he gives Elise the Blue Emerald. And later, he goes back to the present where he uses the White Emerald to go back to the future. However, this means he needs to return the White Emerald to the past for Sonic to be able to use it. However, we never see this happen, so Silver created a temporal paradox. However, you don't really need to think about it that much, as in the end of 06, Sonic and Elise go back in time to the Solaris project to get Solaris off the menu, erasing all of 06's events from the timeline. So, there is no 2 blue emeralds, Elise shouldn't have the blue emerald anymore, and Silver never took the white one to the future. But anyways.
5, 6, 7, 8. Using the power in your face.
The Chaos Emeralds are said to contain an unlimited amount of energy, or I guess specifically Chaos energy, and can grant enough power to let its user control the entire world. And their power increases exponentially as more are gathered. Once again, the best example is Chaos. Though even just one can do something like power a Gaia temple and put a piece of the earth back together. And their energy is influenced by the user's thoughts and emotions, and transform that power to create miracles, hence the phrase, power enriched by the heart. Examples of this can include the Emeralds reversing South Island's pollution at the end of Sonic 1, or Iblis being sealed into Elise and Blaze. Their power is nearly unmatched, with only very few things surpassing, let alone matching, the Chaos Emerald's power. The obvious one being the Master Emerald. However, the Phantom Ruby and Power of the Stars also surpass the power of the Chaos Emeralds. In fact, one of the very few times Super Sonic is able to be damaged is when Heavy King uses the Phantom Ruby against him. Their energy is based on the type of emotions their user produces. They can produce positive energy from things like friendship, or negative energy from things like hatred. And it's shown that the positive energy can cancel out the negative energy, and the Chaos Emeralds can be drained of their power. This happened twice, once with Perfect Chaos and once with Eggman's Chaos Energy Cannon, both using an immense amount of negative energy. However, in both these instances, they weren't actually completely drained of energy. I mean, that's obvious in Adventure, but it still holds true for Unleashed. The Chaos Emeralds are merely dormant, and when dormant, they lose their color and become inert. In Sonic Adventure, Chaos merely used just the negative energy of the Chaos Emeralds to become Perfect Chaos. However, they still had the positive energy, which, fueled by Sonic and his friends' belief in him, Sonic was still able to turn Super. That's probably also what happened to them in Unleashed when awakening Dark Gaia. It just used up all their negative energy, leaving them dormant until they were essentially recharged by the Gaia temples. Though I guess if that were the case, if there was enough positive energy, Sonic could have used them to go Super anyways. The Chaos Emeralds with this energy house many abilities. The Chaos Emeralds also have some sort of sentience, which would explain why they tend to show up when and where they are needed. The Chaos Emeralds are also linked not only to each other, which means you can use them to help pinpoint the other's locations, but they are also linked to the Soul Emeralds, which are the Soul Dimension counterparts to the Chaos Emeralds. And this link between them has been described as north and south on a magnet. The Chaos Emerald's most famous power is the Super Forms, forms that grant invulnerability, flight, and a massive power boost. These Super Forms can also be transferred to others and let them also go Super, or in the case of specifically heroes, grant them the Super Shield, which is essentially a Super Form, just stupid. However, these do consume a lot of energy and don't last long. In-game, that's represented by your amount of rings, but that is obviously not canon. And in Frontiers, through Sonic mastering and harnessing the cyber corruption, he was able to push past the Chaos Emerald's normal limits and achieve Super Sonic 2. You see, now he has blue eyes. And then later pushing even further for Cyber Super Sonic, you see, now he's blue. The main difference with these forms is they are much more powerful, and they seemingly can no longer be used anymore due to Sonic losing his cyber corruption after defeating the End. The Master Emerald can also enhance the Chaos Emerald's power to make them even more powerful, turning them into the Super Emeralds, though not much is known about them as they only appeared in 3 games, 3 in Knuckles where they unlock Hypersonic, Mania where they make a cameo, and LEGO Dimensions as a memory game. The 2 main things we know about them are, they are more powerful than the Chaos Emeralds, but presumably not as powerful as the Master Emerald, and they turn Sonic into Hypersonic, which is just a stronger Super Sonic, just with more aura than Super Sonic 2. And they are canon, but don't expect them to be coming back anytime soon. And the Master Emerald can also allow someone to go super, though in-game it's only been seen with Mecha Sonic. But in the Archie comics we see Sonic and Ray do so, but that's not really canon. And the IDW, which is canon, has Neo Metal Sonic able to go super using the Master Emerald, which the super forms granted by the Master Emerald are pretty standard super forms, though for Mecha Sonic his super form burned through energy incredibly quickly. And someone can be hit out of their super form, with a common theme when that happens being them being caught off guard, such as Knuckles knocking Sonic out of his super form, or Shadow doing the same to Neo Metal. The Chaos Emerald's second most iconic power is Chaos Control, which at first just started out as the ability to use the Chaos Emeralds to teleport. You know, wow, he's fast! Hey, it's not his speed, he must be using the Chaos Emerald to warp! In SA2, its debut game, it's really only used to teleport, from Shadow taunting Sonic at the beginning of the game, the Biolizard teleporting outside the Ark, or Sonic using a Chaos Control with a fake Emerald to escape death. However, in the battle mode, Chaos Control was Shadow's ability that would freeze the opponent for 10 seconds. However, it's not that impressive considering Sonic can also just time stop! It really properly gained the time-stopping ability in Sonic Heroes, where it's used both in the Dark Chaos Inferno Team Blast that destroys all enemies nearby and freezes everything in place for 10 seconds, and it's also used by Metal Overlord to freeze time to prevent Team Sonic from doing anything. However, Chaos Control starts getting ridiculous in Sonic Advance 3, where Eggman uses a Chaos Control to shatter the Earth into 7 chunks, which then later another Chaos Control, with the power of the Master Emerald, is used to repair the world. Then Shadow the Hedgehog brings back the teleporting aspect, with Black Doom teleporting the Black Comet down to Earth, and subsequently the Shadow teleporting it right back. And in gameplay it has two functions. Normally when Shadow fills up his hero meter, he can use the Chaos Emerald to fly forward through the level, destroying or just ignoring anything in his direct path. I think this is just representative of him teleporting. However, in boss fights, Chaos Control slows down time and also gives Shadow unlimited ammo for whatever weapons he's currently using. Then, Sonic 06 throws in time travel as one of its abilities. In 06, Chaos Control is shown doing both its usual abilities, teleportation and slowing things down. However, if two people use Chaos Control at the same time, it'll create a time portal so they can time travel, which happens several times in the story and is very essential to the plot, from allowing Sonic and Shadow to return to the present, showing Shadow and Silver the past while also creating a bootstrap paradox, to Sonic and Elise preventing the game from ever happening. This time travel ability of the Chaos Emeralds has never been brought back, however. Then, between the rival games and Black Knight, Chaos Control was only just seen as special abilities to be used by Shadow or occasionally Metal Sonic, usually just slowing down or stopping time. Then, Chaos Control appears in Generations during Shadow's rival fight, where he just shouts Chaos Control, then decides to use Chaos Spears instead. Then it's absent for the series for a very long time, just recently returning in Shadow Gens and Dream Team. In Shadow Gens, when the Chaos Gauge is filled up, you can stop time for a short while, being useful for things like allowing you to hit certain Black Armed Soldier or walking on normally harmful objects. He can also dash if he comes into contact with green orbs. Chaos Control is also disabled anytime you're in Radical Highway, and both Metal Overlord and Black Doom use Chaos Control during their boss fights. Then in Dream Team it only stops time. Chaos Control started out really just as a teleport, but now refers to literally any reality warping ability of the Chaos Emerald, and is more commonly associated with slowing down time than teleporting. Also, fun fact, Chaos Control is an oxymoron. And now we move on to some of the lesser and more specific powers of the Chaos Emeralds, which there are so many. However, in comparison to the super forms or Chaos Control, they are just so much less interesting to talk about. Even things like Chaos Blast, Sphere, or Snap are comparatively not as interesting. Chaos Blast is an explosion fueled by Shadow's Rage, Chaos Spear is a spear, Chaos Snap is a warp, and I highly doubt anyone wants to hear about things like Atomic Spin, Air Chaos Magic, Chaos Attack, Hyper Flash, Perfect Parry, or Chaos Flame Sword. So to keep this video shorter, most of the miscellaneous Chaos abilities I'm not going to cover. There are just too many that aren't even that interesting to reasonably do that. However, there is a couple more notable abilities, one being how the Chaos Emeralds can seemingly revive the dead, only seen in Sonic 06 where after Mephiles hit Sonic with some back shots, Sonic died. However, Elise could feel Sonic's presence in the wind, so they gather the Chaos Emeralds and using their power, they revive Sonic. Though I guess you could question whether Sonic is actually dead here and if the Chaos Emeralds can actually revive the dead, the most common evidence being,
I don't think he's dead yet.
which, yeah, you can say that means Sonic is still barely alive. However, he is unresponsive, not moving, not breathing, was stabbed in the chest, and they can feel his presence in the wind. I think he is dead. They are just saying that he can still be saved with the Chaos Emeralds, but I could see it going either way. Next is how each Chaos Emerald has its own specific ability, and specifically the North Star Islands. That's why I brought up that there was some connection there. It's never really been explained that much, but it's due to some special energy the North Star Islands have. But it grants each Chaos Emerald its own unique ability, ranging from Shadow Clone Jutsu,
Burst!
the Lens of Truth, Become Water, Summon a Vine,
Chaos Control!
and the white one gives everyone their own unique ability. And finally, the Chaos Emeralds can be used to power machines. That is most commonly what Eggman uses them for. Makes sense, infinite energy would be helpful for powering machines. And finally, there is the Master Emerald, which is the Chaos Emeralds, but stronger. Pretty much everything the Chaos Emeralds can do, the Master Emerald can probably also do. However, the Master Emerald has control over the Chaos Emeralds and can neutralize their energy, or make them even more powerful. It can also seal beings inside it. And communicate with mostly just Knuckles. And using the Master Emerald to its fullest is restricted to mostly the Knuckles clan. And the Master Emerald is transcendental and exists in every time frame simultaneously, meaning if it's gone from one, it can't exist in any others. And the Master Emerald can be shattered, but can be put back together just fine. And also, the Master Emerald cannot control the Soul Emeralds, but it's unknown if there is a Soul Dimension equivalent of the Master Emerald, though you could say it's the Jeweled Scepter, but it's not that good of a fit. But that's really everything about their powers. They grant unlimited energy, and they have essentially been set up so if Sonic Team ever needs some random new ability, it's not that much of a stretch to just say the Chaos Emeralds can do it. But let's see how the Chaos Emeralds are handled in
Chaos is power!
Finally, I want to go over some of the times the Emeralds have properly appeared in other Sonic media. First, the ones where they are nigh interchangeable. First are the IDW comics and Sonic Prime, where those are just the same Emeralds due to sharing the same continuity as the games. Next is Sonic X, where they are very similar to their game counterparts, having mostly the same history, just without the later game's lore dumps. Functionally, they are also very similar to the game's version, but with some differences, like making machinery go haywire or releasing a ton of energy when brought together without time to react. They also have a new ability, only seen once near the end. Chaos Regeneration. It's supposed to heal or prevent someone from dying, and Sonic and Shadow use it to try and save Cosmo's life, but turn her into a seed. Also, this ability is technically still in the dub, however, it's instead referred to as just Chaos Control. The dub tends to just refer to anything relating to the Chaos Emeralds as Chaos Control. And the entire story of Sonic X revolves around a massive Chaos Control sending Sonic and friends to Earth. The Archie comics also have similar Emeralds, just a little bit different in terms of backstory and their powers. Then we get to the movie Emeralds, which are quite different from the games. We are introduced to them in Sonic Movie 2, which revolves around the Master Emerald, which was forged long ago by the Echidnas through combining the 7 Chaos Emeralds. This power proved to be too great, so the Owls stole it and hid it on Earth, which started a century-long feud between the echidnas and owls, as the owls safeguarded the Master Emerald, eventually leading Longclaw to be its guardian. And when she dies, that torch was passed on to Sonic. The Master Emerald is still the ultimate power, so much power that a single warrior granted its powers would be able to defeat entire armies. Though in the movies, the Master Emerald, and by extension Chaos Emerald's power, is described as turning thoughts into reality, as opposed to power. The Master Emerald can also still be forced out of its user, and is still not indestructible. The Chaos Emeralds themselves, though, are barely seen or talked about. The focus is mostly on the Master Emerald. The Chaos Emeralds also appear in the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog and Sonic Underground. They have similar abilities in Sonic Underground, though are more like the Master Emerald, and we have only seen 2. And the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, they are almost entirely different. They each have a different shape and ability. There are the Chaos Emeralds of Invisibility, Immortality, Life, and Invincibility, along with the Chaos Emerald Ring, which lets its user do practically anything. They also just do not appear in SAT-AM, the OVA, and Boom. So with the exception of the last 3, they have been mostly consistent with the game's lore. Though it makes sense that it wouldn't be consistent in Adventures in Underground, they weren't that consistent in the games yet either. And the changes the movies made do make sense for that timeline, especially focusing on mostly the Master Emerald rather than all 7 Chaos Emeralds. But really, that's about it for the Chaos Emeralds. So yeah, the Chaos Emeralds are certainly something. They just started out as plot devices. Oh, Sonic must get the Emerald so Eggman can't use them. And really, they still are. Sure, they do have some set-in-stone abilities, the main ones being supersonic and powering machines. But then we have Chaos Control, which just started as a teleport, then gained the ability to slow down time, until it eventually just became the embodiment of how Sonic Team will just give the Chaos Emeralds random new abilities if it's needed for the plot, like the time travel or separating the Earth, only to later forget said abilities. Heck, there are very few Chaos abilities to appear in more than one game. Obviously the first is Chaos Control, but we also have Chaos Spear, Snap, and Blast, which have continued to appear as just part of Shadow's arsenal. Everything else just often gets forgotten right after their debut game. Their history though is pretty neat, albeit a little strange. And I hope you learned something new about the Chaos Emeralds, and if you have any extra fun facts about the Emeralds that I missed, leave a comment down below.